Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, and I'm joined today by attorney Jessup. And today we're going to talk about how to prevent your standard long-term disability insurance benefits from being denied. And Stephen, this is basically deals with the claim handling service that we offer for our clients, in which we provide them with tips how to prevent their benefits from being denied and steps that they should take in order to put them in the best position so that in the long run they can avoid problems with the standard. So when someone calls you with standard, generally, what is your take in the manner in which standard handles their long-term disability claims?
Standard is a major company, but it's not one of the companies we probably get the most calls on, not like a Cigna or a Prudential. And one of the interesting things about Standard is the fact that they also have individual policies that you can purchase on your own, or the group ones. I find that most time people are calling us on the employer-provided group policies, but the fact that they do have claims handling on the individual side, they kind of impart that a bit into their group handling. So they're much more thorough and probably up to date knowing what's going on with the file. Where with some other insurance companies, it may seem like the claims manager, has no idea who the doctors are, when the treatment is, those types of things. Standard's very thorough, so you can expect that any reviews they are doing, they are not just doing, really small, minimal reviews to deny claims. They're really building up a body of evidence if it's going to support a denial of benefits. So when I hear Standard, the first thing I think to myself, generally speaking, will be, you better hope you have all your ducks in a row, all the information organized and being presented to them, in a correct way.
Okay, so you know that our law firm offers a unique service in which we manage claims for people, where we deal with all the communications from the carrier, they never speak to the disability insurance company, and then we deal with the medical records, and basically we're always there for the claimant to kind of be like their insurance on top of insurance to help them protect the benefits. But in this video, I want to give some tips as to important steps that claimants should be taking in order to avoid a standard denial. So what do you think is the first most important thing that a claimant should be doing who's on claim and wants to make sure they're doing everything they can to keep their benefits from being denied?
First, the biggest overarching theme is always going to be your medical records and your treatment. So treatment, actually treating with doctors. A lot of times you'll find people, they'll contact us and well, my doctor says there's not much they can do for me, so I don't really go in. Well, the problem is an insurance company is just going to determine what your level of impairment is a lot of times based on your medical record. So getting the treatment, communicating with your doctor what the problems are, and making sure the doctor's actually noting it in the records. It happens all the time where a person says, well, I told my doctor X, Y, and Z, but then when we review the medical records, none of that's there. So treatment, communicating with your doctor, and also, letting the doctor know if you're on claim, the doctor's going to have to fill out forms, but letting them know the doctor may get a call from an insurance company too. And if that happens, making sure you're kind of coordinating with it. This is if you're handling on your own. These are the things you need to really be focusing on. So your medical treatment and what those records are saying.
And then you talked about the records, so I want to take it a step forward. What types of things are very important to be in the medical records?
The biggest thing really, and this is where I feel is missing, and when you see a denial letter, the reason why is a lack of restrictions and limitations. So the doctor, you have a back problem, say for instance, they say, well, there's issues with the lower back, L4, L5, and they just kind of go there. They don't talk about what the recommended restrictions are with lifting and sitting, carrying, pushing, and the insurance company is really looking for that type of stuff. Also, if you could get updated objective medical evidence that can support, the levels of impairment, things like that. So I think that's really the big thing that I find is missing, because a lot of these medical records we see, you have your portions where the doctors just kind of plug in, if various different things, and they have a spot to write. A lot of times those don't necessarily gel. They're inconsistent, and an insurance company will tend to focus on the part that helps them while ignoring the parts that will help you.
Right, and the other thing I wanted to add to what you said is that it's really important to get the claimant's symptoms into the medical records, and even as going as far as maybe keeping a daily pain journal or activity journal, so that or symptom journal, because some people may not be in pain, but they may have a limited range of motion or something like that, or if it's headaches or migraines, how many times you're having it per day, whatever the different medical conditions are. And then if you're seeing your doctor, which we'll get into how often someone should see a doctor, but whenever you do go to the doctor, bringing that journal to the doctor, sharing it with the doctor, and letting the doctor say, claimant brought to me today a pain journal, a symptom log, I've documented the following key things, or they provided me with a copy which I've attached to my medical records. And that can be very helpful because this way it's not missing anything. You know how the carriers always say, well, we saw that you went in there, but we didn't see that you were having any symptoms. So the records aren't supporting what you're telling us on claim forms. So that's another tip that's really helpful. The other thing I want to move into is the claim forms. And where do you see that claimants get into problems in the manner in which they fill out the claim forms?
You know, with the claimant, we'll get there, but I think the bigger thing is how the doctors fill it out, because I think those forms are a lot more tricky or set up for failure.
So you're talking about the attending physician
statement, because a lot of times, you know, it's a one size fits all. Unless you have a behavioral health problem, you know, that may have its own form. Every other physical condition, whether you have a bad back, you have a heart problem, you know, whatever the case may be, they're going to give them the same form. And a lot of times on these forms, they want to know, you know, basically, can the person do sedentary work, light, medium, things like that. And a lot of times that may not be relevant. That may not be the cause. If you have, you know, gastrointestinal problems, I was speaking with a client recently, and that was the case. She's like, my doctor got this form, and he's like, I can't fill this out. This has to do with orthopedic problems. So they set it up for doctors to feel almost stymied with the ability to really elaborate on it. So I think that's where it is with claimants on it, though. Part of the issue, and a lot of times when they're asking about what you do, your activities of daily living, and you know how far you can drive and things like that, they seem innocuous, but what they're really doing is trying to build up information. If they put you under video surveillance later and you say, oh, I can't drive more than, you know, 5 miles, but they get you going 25, 30, it's attacking your credibility. So sometimes people will try to, you know, almost sell their disability a bit too much about the restrictions are so severe, but a lot of that stuff is really being set up for potential attacks on credibility later. You know, as a lawyer, we always hate seeing the word never, because if they find you doing something you said you could never do, it's going to be a problem. Because most conditions are going to have such a subjective component, you know, especially your pain. So if the insurance company, if Standard's not trusting you to provide them truthful answers on simple things, why should they then believe your subjective complaints, you know, regarding your pain or whatnot?
I want to bounce back a second because you brought up the attending physician statement, and I was talking about how we help clients when we're in the claim. How do you work with your clients to make sure the attending physician statement is providing the information that you think needs to be in there?
I think one of the big things, I call it see attached. You know, a lot of times when these things, and especially if it's a situation where it's not an orthopedic problem, you know, see attached and then an addendum to that, because you can create an addendum to explain what the medical problem is and what the restrictions and limitations from that are for preventing from work, and even on orthopedic problems. If it is a pain-based condition, they don't often give a lot of chance for a doctor to put someone has below sedentary level work. So to be able to, you know, write into that and explain that to the doctor, have a phone call with the doctor and explain. And also very important, you know, doctors, you know, generally are trying to help their patients. They see the form and they see sedentary, can lift up to 10 pounds, and they go, well, yeah. You know, it's also reminding the doctor that this disability is not activities of daily living. It's towards, you know, if it's the person's own occupation or any gainful occupation. So it's this idea of working 40 hours a week with reasonable continuity.
All right, so I know many times whether I have to set a phone conference with a doctor and then explain to them, and it can be a 5 to 15 minute type call, go through the form, explain like you were saying, this is not about activities of daily living. This is about the ability to do, whether it's an own occupation or any occupation, and like we always say, 8 hours a day, 40 days a week. Doctor needs to understand that. This is basically being a reliable employee who can work with reasonable continuity, and so much to the point to say, doctor, if you had a position in your office, would you hire this person and expect them to be there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and doing everything that needs to be done without taking breaks, without having to lay down, without, you know, whatever it may be, but having to be reliable is kind of the standard of what it comes down to. Not can the person go to dinner, cook, take the garbage out, walk the dog. That's not what this is about.
Or be a warm body in an office. It's actually work.
So doctor has to understand that, and then we work with the doctor, or we help also educating the claimant and being like an intermediary, because it's easier for a claimant to go into a because the claimants are always uncomfortable. Doctors don't like insurance companies at all, and they don't want to be bothered with additional paperwork. Honestly, they're not getting paid enough to do it because the insurance company's already giving them like $20 every time a patient comes in. So our clients like the ability to be able to go to the doctor and say, I have a lawyer who's helping me. He suggested the following things for the claim form. And the doctors, 99 of 100 times, they love that. If they agree with everything that you're telling them as a claimant, then they're like, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. I'm going to document. I'm happy to help. And if your lawyer has any other questions, tell them to let me know. So I think that's a big plus that the claimants really like. Going back to the claim form, you were talking about an addendum as well. And I think that's super important. And I wanted to reiterate why it's so important to just disclose everything you're doing and how that relates to the tactics of video surveillance. Because I think that the more open you are about what you're doing, then the carrier is not going to be like, oh, you misrepresented. They may not like what you're doing, but if you go out and do something for an hour or 2 hours a week in a totality, it's better you tell them than they catch you on video and say, you said you couldn't, drive for an hour. You said you couldn't, go outside for a walk for an hour, and then you go ahead and do it, and you have a problem. You're better off just telling them, because all the things that you are worried about as a claimant are usually not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
It's when you don't tell them that they go, okay, because if they get you in one lie, is that all it takes?
It can be really all it takes. Standard will dig in. That'll, set the tone as the way they're going to review, especially any subjective nature of your condition. So you want to steal the thunder. You don't want to give them any extra aha moments because you've already provided them with that. Like you said, they may not like it, but it's better, because if you were in a position of responding and on the defensive, it's very difficult when you're on the defensive against, a massive insurance company.
And the thing about Standard, which is they often have their own in-house doctors, nurses for sure, and they tend, and one of the other things we know, their claim reps, and this is good and bad, are very experienced. I've had claim reps there that are attorneys on not just one occasion, but multiple occasions. And when we get denial letters from them,
yeah, they're very detailed.
Yeah, it's not the 2-page nonsense. So they have for right or wrong, whether we agree with the denial or not, which often we may not, but sometimes it is correct. The person's just not disabled for a variety of reasons. They are detailed in their review of the claim and are going to reach out to all of their resources, whether it's medical, vocational. They're not afraid to use video surveillance, and they're certainly going to look, which is the last thing, in the social media. And what's your tip about how to manage social media if you're a person who's on claim?
Privacy settings first and foremost. I'm amazed at how often when we do get it now, we get the claim file, and they have screenshots after screenshot in the claim file of the social media stuff, pictures, whether it be on vacation, out at, doing, whatever the case may be. And they will use that to draw a better picture of what it's really like for you on a day-to-day basis. Do I agree with it all the time? No. Someone goes on a vacation, they have an opportunity to go. Of course, you're going to want to take those things, but just know that someone's going to be looking at that as a way to find a way to deny a case. So social media can be very, very problematic. I think it's even getting to a level of video surveillance in a lot of ways, especially, right now when we're filming this, COVID's happening, so video surveillance wasn't happening as much. It was a lot harder to blend in when people aren't leaving their homes. So insurance companies started really doing an uptick of viewing people's online presence, and not just your Facebook or YouTube or any of that stuff, but other things you may be doing. Your Yelp reviews, how often you're going out, they track a lot of information. So, anytime you put something out there, just know it can be used against you.
So those were some helpful tips, and I want people to know that we always offer a free initial consultation. So if you have a claim with Standard Disability Insurance Company, you should feel free to call Steven or call myself, and we'll review your policy, and we'll right away let you know how we think we can assist you. We also encourage you to spend some time and look around our website. You can find that you can search specifically, look for a lot of stuff on Standard, such as cases that we've handled, lawsuits that we've written summaries about. You can also search by your occupation. You can search by your medical condition. And the idea there is to find a lot of helpful claim tips, which are going to help put you in the best position to keep your benefits from being denied. Our clients are located all over the country, so we're available to assist you no matter where you live, and we look forward to speaking with you in the future should you need us. Thank you.